My name is Mo. I'm a Nigerian Canadian entrepreneur. It's great to be here. I'm the founder CEO at Skillhat. I went from scoring Fs to scoring As in like 3 months.
My name is Jean-Paul, but people call me JP. Well, we built an AI agent for accountants.
So I figured out what I loved at the time was technology, YouTube, video games, and rap music. So I said, okay, what can I do in life that involves these things?
You don't want to be just doing one thing. You want to be able to wear different hats, run marketing for a day, run sales for another day.
Many folks start to believe that the American dream is a lie. Financial literacy isn't taught to anyone. So how can you equip yourself with the tools required to survive financially?
The dream my parents told us, go to school, get a house, get a wife, happily ever after. It's not the same. Folks can't even afford to buy a home anymore. In business, you have to find a starving crowd. If you had a hot dog stand in front of your house, right? You're selling hot dogs, you put the stand in front of your house, you may sell a few hot dogs every single day, right? But if you put that same hot dog stand at the Scotiabank Arena after a Raptors game, you're going to sell out in like 20, 30 minutes, right? With 10,000 people.
I think the next wave in terms of human-computer interaction would be voice-based interface.
My friends were broke. Folks I went to school with at U of T were driving Uber and working security. And I'm like, bro, I could teach you project management skills in 4 months. You can land a really good job and pay 6 figures. And I did. And I was teaching my friends business analysis, product management, and they were just getting jobs and changing their lives.
Try to really find the problem that you're good at and that you uniquely can solve, right?
So we provide these insights to you so that you know what's to come and you're prepared in the event that you want to take advantage of it.
Man, this guy's a good presenter. I feel like I'm on CNN right now.
Thank you so much for your engagement and for being with us tonight. We're about to dive into an exciting conversation. We'll make sure to not get too technical, but also provide tactical advices that you can implement starting tomorrow. So that being said, we're going to dive into a wonderful workshop, Next Generation HCI. So HCI is essentially human-computer interaction. It's also known as user experience design. So for some of you, when you look at your phone or you interact with digital tools, there's a lot of thinking that went into designing these platforms. And that's what that practice is. So we'll be diving into the future of HCI. We'll be diving into future-proofing your career with artificial intelligence, and most importantly, entrepreneurship. That being said, I bring with me today Mo and JP. Why these gentlemen? Nowadays, we hear a lot of ChatGPT, AI, DeepSeek, and so on and so forth. When we look at the headlines, we see that the UAE has invested over $1.4 trillion in the US, focusing on AI development over the next 10 years. So what does that mean for us in terms of how we're preparing ourselves for the future? These two professionals are not only talking the talk, but they're also walking the walk, putting their careers on the line when it comes to being future ready and also contributing to technology in different ways. To my left, I have Mo here, founder of Skillhat. He's looking to democratize access to technology careers, more specifically when it comes to people who haven't necessarily studied what we call STEM subjects. So STEM is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. He helps folks pivot into either tech-focused careers, remote roles, and essentially helping you throughout that process. He's helped hundreds of people do so. Next to him, we have JP. JP wears multiple hats. Recently, he was a senior consultant at Deloitte in their data and AI practice, and he also built his own venture called Taxuby. Recently, that venture was acquired by Blockwise, and he joined that team as part of their main CTO. That being said, let's dive into the conversation, gentlemen. How are you feeling?
Not bad. Thanks for having me. How are you feeling?
Amazing.
All right. So if y'all can just give us a quick introduction about yourselves, something personal, but also where your mind is at in terms of where we're going and how you feel about everything.
Awesome. Can y'all hear me in the back? Awesome. Thanks for having me. Great event. My name is Mo. I'm a Nigerian Canadian entrepreneur. It's great to be here. I'm the founder CEO at Skillhat. At Skillhat, what we do is very simple. We train people in tech skills and put them in tech jobs. We've grown to a point that we now have thousands of students across the world. Our alumni community, who we train in skills like project management, business analysis, product management, user experience design, and cybersecurity, have gone on to do great things. We've taken people from being Uber drivers to being now product managers with the City of Toronto, with the Raptors, taking folks from being social workers to being product managers, taking folks from being cleaners and people who are in tough situations to buying homes and buying multiple cars and changing their lives. So we're in the business of changing lives for the Black community and for women. My story started here at U of T. This is my first time getting invited back after 13 years. So it's a big day for me. Finally,
Welcome back.
they called me back. And it's funny because I almost, like in my first year, I actually failed at U of T. I didn't do well. So my dad sent me here from Nigeria at 16 years old, had a lot of faith in me, and I didn't do well. I actually failed. I was studying economics at the time, and it was just not for me. When I was in Nigeria, I used to sell CDs to rich kids, so I thought I'd come to Canada and start doing and learn business. So I took commerce. Bad decision for me. At the time, I wanted to be a big business mogul like Jay-Z or Diddy. Well, maybe not Diddy anymore because all the stuff happening right now. But so I said, okay, I'll study commerce. I didn't like it. I was bored. The accounting, the commerce, the economics wasn't for me. So my dad said, okay, cool. I'm shipping you back to Africa. You wasted 20K of my money. And I'm like, no, please, Dad, let me figure it out. So I figured out what I loved at the time was technology, YouTube, video games, and rap music. So I said, okay, what could I do in life that involves these things? And I figured out it was technology and business combined. So I switched from commerce to DEM, which is Digital Enterprise Management, a program at UTM. And I went from scoring Fs to scoring As in like 3 months. And that was the biggest lesson for me, which is you got to focus on your passion. Since then, I started working in tech. I worked for Microsoft, worked at the City of Toronto, went back to Nigeria, built the first online MBA in Nigeria using our tech at the time, and then came back to Canada and started Skillhat. And that's my story.
Wow, amazing, amazing. Let's give him a round of applause.
Hi everybody, I just want to know in this room, who here has a tech background, engineer? Okay, a few in the room. Who here is excited about learning more about tech? Everyone, all right, that's awesome. My name is Jean-Paul, but people call me JP. Fun fact, I have a twin brother who's also JP, so if I see you after this and I don't say hi, it's not because I'm avoiding you, it's just that it's not me, so pardon me in advance. So like Carl said, I serve as CTO at Blockwise. I joined Blockwise from the creation of my previous company, Taxuby, a tax and consulting company, where we built an AI agent for accountants. And prior to that, I held roles at Deloitte in consulting and the AI and algorithm practice. And before that, I also worked at a pension fund and the finance roles. And so my skill set is really between finance and tech, so really fintech space. But at the same time, I also want to give back to the community. And so I also sit on the board of the Black Wealth Club and the Entrepreneurship Committee, where we try to help Black people and all people of diverse background to start their own business. And so I guess really what I'm excited about here today is to talk about the excitement about tech, AI, and how to tell that no, AI will not take your job, but will actually help your job. So that's a bit about me.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you, gentlemen. So it seems like you have both taken paths to opening doors for folks, giving back to the community in different ways, right? So my first question for Mo is, I want to know how, in today's AI-driven world, one of the biggest anxieties people have is knowing what skills to focus on to stay relevant. So you've built a platform specifically designed to help professionals future-proof their careers. So if you had to boil it down to just 3 specific skills that people should focus on today to stay competitive, what would they be and why?
Yeah, great question. What 3 skills to stay competitive? When I saw the question, I was listing out skills, and I got to like 13 skills. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. It was like offer creation, leadership, creativity, business analysis, automation, prompt engineering, cybersecurity. I'm like, there's a ton of skills to focus on. So like, how do you boil down to 3? And I thought about the 3 that really matter in the next couple years, based on research and based on what I've seen, helping thousands of people transition to tech jobs and talking to a lot of employers. And the first is really learning agility, knowing how to learn, how to unlearn, and how to relearn. Because the one thing that's constant today in life is change, right? And taxes. And so there's always things that be changing. And so, for example, when I started my career in 2013, finished school, the top skills there were mobile app development, user experience design, and running Facebook ads. Then it became cloud computing, agile, and CRM, Salesforce. Then it became now it's AI and cybersecurity. And so it's always changing. So the first skill is just learning agility. The second I'll call is digital fluency. So understanding how tech works and how tech is built. Because every industry is becoming tech driven. My last role was in an insurance company, and we're building insurance tech that will monitor as you're driving and see if you're a good driver and give you reduced fees based on that. Or if you had an accident, you could just take a photo of the accident and get paid immediately. Like even insurance is a tech company now, which is like the most boring old industry. So just understanding how tech is built so you can really see what's possible and see problems and lead to solutions. And so the first thing in digital fluency is understanding what's called the SDLC. Show of hands if you're familiar with the SDLC. So the SDLC is a very simple concept in building software and building technology, which is a 6-step framework to solve any problem with technology, which starts with requirements. What are the requirements of the solution? And then design, how will it work? What's the flow of information and the user experience? And then third is development. How do you actually build it and code it? The fourth is testing. How do you test that it works to your requirements? And then launching it, deployment, and then maintaining it. So understanding the SDLC so you can lead development of technology is the second skill, fluency of digital. And the third is problem framing, because tech doesn't solve problems. People who find the problem use tech to solve problems. And so the first thing is being able to figure out what the problem is. I'll give you an example, right? I was talking to the guy who played was it the sax he played?
Saxophone,
yeah.
Somi.
Great job, Somi. Make some noise for the sax player if you heard him and you liked him. Yeah, he crushed it. And he's in the marketing space. So he says he wants to launch his marketing company. And I'm like, okay, but what problem do you want to solve? It's not just marketing. He's like, okay, let's break it down. Problem I want to solve is I've noticed that African businesses in Canada are not always up to par as far as quality and as far as revenue. So, okay, what's the cause of that problem? Well, the cause of that problem may be education or maybe marketing. So it's like knowing being able to solve and frame a problem first, know who the exact customer is, what's the pain point, who are the stakeholders, what does success look like first, and then we solve it with tech. So in summary, the top 3 skills I'll focus on is learning agility, learning how to learn and unlearn and relearn, digital fluency, and problem framing.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much. I think that gives the audience great skills for them to take on, whether it be adaptability when it comes to staying relevant at your job, being proactive at your job, but also if you want to dive into entrepreneurship. I think these 3 core skills that you highlight are very valuable for each and every one in the audience, regardless of how seasoned you may be and if you want to dive into entrepreneurship or not. So, JP, up to you. The question that I have for you comes to your experience in consulting, right? Your experience in the corporate world. So from an industry point of view, you've had a front row seat to how some of the biggest organizations in the world are future-proofing their operations through this digital transformation age in which we're in. So my question to you is, what trends are you seeing in how forward-thinking companies, such as the ones you have been part of, are redefining talent, training, and skills to stay future-ready in the AI-powered era?
Great question, and I would say the answer really depends. Like great consultants, the answer is always, it depends. That's one trick for you guys. If you don't know the answer, it's always, it depends. So it really depends. If you're at a big organization, like we've talked about, I would say the biggest skill, I wouldn't say it's a technology like prompt engineering or learning how to code. I would say it's curiosity. Because at those big organizations, there's so many things that can happen, and there's always a space for you to try something. And so when I started working in consulting, I realized that the first 2 weeks is training about the specific software. But then as I went into my career, I realized I picked up a skill about learning how to code a certain thing, to try out new methods. And so I would say when you're a big organization, it's always about curiosity more than technical things focus. But then if you have a smaller or mid-sized organization, so at Blockwise, we deal a lot with medium-sized companies, scale-ups, and I would say that the biggest skill right now, of course, is prompt engineering. And the reason why is because the biggest skill is about wearing multiple hats. If you're at a medium-sized company, you don't want to be just doing one thing. You want to be able to wear different hats, run marketing for a day, run sales for another day. And so the biggest skill, if you're at a startup, I would say it's about wearing different hats. And I think that's where you're going to find the key. And so you really need to find out like what type of organization are you in, and I think that's going to be the best factor for you.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much, JP. Essentially, I feel like it's all about equipping people with the armor they need to kind of overcome any challenge they face. So speaking of challenges, many folks start to believe that the American dream is a lie. This may be shocking, but the reason behind this is that people are struggling with something called wage stagnation versus inflation, in the sense that your promotions aren't necessarily keeping up with the rate of inflation. So people are looking to entrepreneurship as a way for survival. There's the fact that people are looking towards homeownership, but that could also be called as a myth, right? Because more and more people are seeing their homes as assets, but they're living inside them. So it's not necessarily generating income, right? And the last piece, most importantly, when it comes to the fact that American dream may be a myth, is the fact that financial literacy isn't taught to anyone. So how can you equip yourself with the tools required to survive financially, right? So that being said, both of you have taken somewhat of a bold entrepreneurial step, transitioning from corporate spaces into leading your own ventures. So Mo, for those of you who may not know, Mo is very active on LinkedIn. Feel free to follow, add him. His name is above. But he posted something that I found very interesting. Mo, this question's for you. You said that this is one of the biggest opportunities to create wealth. So for those ready to build, what are the biggest untapped market gaps in the AI space right now? And how should they think about getting in?
Man, this guy's a good presenter. I feel like I'm on CNN right now.
Appreciate it.
So the biggest untapped opportunities in the AI space in entrepreneurship, right? So show of hands if you don't have a business right now, but you want to start a business at some point. Okay, awesome. Show of hands if you are already starting your business and you're trying to get it to pick up. You already started? Okay, cool. Show of hands if you already have a business, it's generating revenue of 10K plus per month and you're trying to scale. So a few, like 2 or 3. So most of us are either just starting or want to start. Great. Please come talk to me after. I love helping entrepreneurs launch their businesses. So Alex Hormozy, who's like my mentor, I met him last year. How many of us know Hormozy? Alex Hormozy? Fantastic. Him and his wife, Layla, crushing it. Alex was taking home $1.7 million a month at 27 years old. So knows a lot of stuff. And he says that in business, you have to find a starving crowd, right? And what does that mean? If you had a hot dog stand in front of your house, right? You're selling hot dogs, you put the stand in front of your house, you may sell a few hot dogs every single day, right? But if you put that same hot dog stand at the Scotiabank Arena after a Raptors game, you're going to sell out in like 20, 30 minutes, right?
That's a fact.
With 10,000 people. So where's the starving crowd? And where's the untapped need? Well, right now, 75% of businesses across the world plan to implement AI in some form to make their operations faster, increase revenue. So that's the starving crowd because that work will happen with or without you. And so you want to position yourself to execute that work. And so I think, to answer your question, the biggest opportunity to build wealth is to actually help existing businesses implement tools and AI software to increase their efficiency and increase their revenue. Because they already are out there and they're trying to implement these things right now. You could do that as an entrepreneur, as a services business, or building a product specifically. But again, the tip is not to chase technology and AI, but to chase a very specific problem in a very specific market, right? Like I was telling Sami, it's about, okay, you're going to focus on African founders who have a marketing problem. Great. Then technology becomes a solution to doing that, right? And so the problem I'm seeing right now, the opportunity, is that most technologies and AI tools are generic, right? So ChatGPT is for everything, right? But specific industries like healthcare, law, construction, they need technology for their specific workflows. So that's a huge opportunity. So for example, recently I went to my doctor I had a headache, and I went there to talk to her. And if you guys know doctors, they have terrible handwriting. They're just scribbling as you go, right? But I noticed she wasn't even writing anything. And I'm like, is she taking any notes? What's going on? Like, this is bad. And I noticed she had an AI note taker that was taking notes for what I was saying and diagnosing my stuff in real time. And data actually shows that doctors are more likely to get diagnosis correct when they use AI and technology. But some hospitals don't have that right now. And lots of companies are not able to implement tech and AI because of compliance rules and because of data privacy, and they're scared and all of that. And so if you can help niche businesses like any mom and pop business, pharmacy, healthcare, implement technology, that's the opportunity, building it and as a product or installing existing tools as a professional services business. So how do you actually do it? How do you actually execute? I could break that down a little bit later.
Okay, fantastic. That's a full response, and we can see how seasoned you are just in terms of what you decide to focus on as an entrepreneur, right? Right now, I think you kind of gave us somewhat of a speedway to get to a next level when it comes to entrepreneurship and building solutions in a way that is future-proof, right? Thank you as well for sharing your insights from veterans like Alex Hormozy. I think that may speak to many people here in the room. And it also sets the stage for the next question that I have for JP. Mo mentioned a lot of AI integrations, technology integrations, essentially highlighting the fact that the future is here and the future is now. But how are we being more intentional in terms of building solutions, integrating artificial intelligence, considering, for example, compliance, right? As Mo mentioned. So now we're diving into a world where we've moved from typing on our platforms to speaking to our platforms in a way that the text or the speech that they hear, the technology hears, is able to act on it. But now we've also moved to brain-computer interfaces, where chips are being put on our brains. If you've heard of Neuralink, for example, that's what it's about. How can you leverage that brain-computer interface to essentially help you forward? So the question that I have for you, JP, as you move into the CTO role, as you go about designing technology for your company, I want to know, in your view, what's the next major evolution in how humans interact with machines, and how will AI shape the future of human-computer interaction?
It's a great point that you mentioned, Neuralink, because I think it's going to happen someday, but not today. I think the next wave in terms of human-computer interaction would be voice-based interface, right? And we've already seen that with Siri in the last 10 years, but it was never quite there yet. And now we're in a shift where, with so many data of spoken and written that's available on the internet, you see AI and LLMs being able to understand that and remove the ambiguity of a context and be able to take that data and convert the voice into text. And that used to be a really hard technical problem because you had to look at the mathematical equation behind it, and the computer wasn't able to understand. But now the computer is able to understand because of all the examples we're able to give it. And so the next leap will have to be voice. And that is also the way we communicate as humans, right? You, baby, yes, you can point, you can say, okay, go there, but it's always about voice. How do you speak? And so the next step would be voice. And it sounds a bit scary at first, like, oh, I don't want to talk to an AI, but it's coming. It's coming. And I always tell myself, man, like, I can't wait to be like 50 years old and like don't understand technology. Like, that's when I know like technology is there, is because technology always outgrows us. And so the next step will be voice. And we're already seeing it with apps. You're seeing it with your car, right? You can say, read my text. And so you see more and more technology using voice. And that is going to be the next step, is to be able to use voice. And that's also just how human we interact. So the voice second, and then hopefully someday Neuralink. But I think for now, watch out for the next few years. It's definitely going to have to be voice. And I think that's going to be the next step for computer interaction.
Wow, very, very insightful, very inspirational, I think, especially for those of you who may be, tech advocates and that are passionate about technology. One reason I believe these future insights are important is because it shows us where the world is going, but before you know it, it'll also be here. So there's something known as Moore's Law, right? Does anybody here know of Moore's Law by any chance? All right. Essentially, it means that every 2 years, technology advances at twice the speed. So regardless of if you want to adopt it or not, if when push comes to shove, you will be put in that situation and you'll be forced to use that technology. There's also something called the innovators adopters curve, right? Which essentially shows that folks that are reluctant to use the technology at first, they'll see the early adopters use it, and sooner or later, they'll use that technology as well. So we provide these insights to you so that you know what's to come and you're prepared in the event that you want to take advantage of it. So that being said, the last question that I have for the both of you, and I'll start with Mo. Mo, you've been, your platform, Skillhat, right, helps others reinvent themselves every day, often through radical changes, radical career changes, as you mentioned before. And they're breaking into unfamiliar industries. But reinvention often starts or begins with a personal decision, right? So what was the moment that you had to reinvent yourself? And what pushed you to step away from the traditional path and start building Skillhat?
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Definitely had to reinvent myself. And I feel like with the way the world is going, if you're not reinventing yourself every 2 or 3 years, you're not moving fast enough, right? So right now I'm a CEO, I have 26 employees, but only 4 years ago I was working in corporate myself. But why did I make that decision to quit my job? I was a VP at Marsh, which is a $100 billion company at 29 years old. And I quit my job after I got married. I told my wife, it's been a month of being married, surprise, I'm quitting my job. She was like, what? And, but why did I do that? Well, 2 things. One, it wasn't entirely, sacrificial. I wanted to make money, first of all. But also I saw a huge opportunity to help the world. So I'll talk about the 2 reasons why I did that, why I quit my job and started Skillhat. The first was helping others. So even though I was a leader at an insurance tech at 29, my friends were broke. Folks I went to school with at U of T were driving Uber and working security. And I'm like, bro, I could teach you project management skills in 4 months. You can land a really good job and pay 6 figures. Like, nah, you can't do that. And I did. And I was teaching my friends business analysis, product management, and they were just getting jobs and changing their lives. But the data still showed that the black community, for example, only holds 3% of tech jobs. Women only hold 25% of tech jobs and leadership. So there was a huge there's a huge racial gap and a huge gender gap in tech. And companies do want more women and more black folks in tech because it makes better products, right? You go to Starbucks, they're playing music that's inclusive, you're gonna stay there longer. And so that became the first opportunity, which is to help the underserved get tech jobs. And we've done that very well. Last year we got $1 million from the government of Canada to train people in design and coding. And we're doing that very well. Now, the next thing was I saw that I was limited in income I could make as an employee, and I wanted to become an entrepreneur. How did I find this? I read this book called Millionaire Fastlane by MJ DeMarco. It's not a very popular book, but it changed my life. Anyone hear about that book? Probably no one, like 2 or 3, right? Millionaire Fastlane by MJ DeMarco. If you are considering being an entrepreneur, starting a business, read that book and you will not sleep till you launch your business because it gives you so much conviction as to why. But here's what I realized from reading that book. Right now, over 65% of seniors over 65 years old cannot retire. They're working at Walmart, right? They don't have enough income that they thought they would have to retire. Like you just said, the American dream, I'm almost gonna say it's dead, right? The dream our parents told us, go to school, get a house, get a wife, happily ever after. It's not the same. Folks can't even afford to buy a home anymore. So I realized that I couldn't increase my income to where I wanted to be in a job because, well, first, to increase your income from a job, you have to get a raise, go talk to your boss and say, hey, I need more money. They say no, you come back again, they say why, right? Or you have to get a promotion, which takes time, or you have to just work longer hours. However, the book talked about how the path to wealth is not just running a business necessarily, but having what's called a business system that makes money for you when you're not there. So a business system. So I started investigating a little bit. Let's use the example of a barber, right? If you were a barber and you cut hair, you cut a ton of hair every single day, you're making money, you're an entrepreneur, But if you go to Thailand or Jamaica for 3 months to be on vacation, you make no money, right? So you're really just a glorified, self-employed person, which is nothing wrong with, but it's not having a system. Whereas if you owned a barbershop and you had barbers in there paying you rent and paying you royalties for cutting hair, if you leave and go for a year, you still make money, right? So that was the thing I learned. And even if you write content, for example, so you wrote a book one time. There's a guy, Myron Golden, he wrote a book 3 years ago, and he still makes $30K a month off that book. Alex Hormozy wrote the book $100 Million Offers. How many of us read the book $100 Million Offers by Hormozy? You need to read that book. He makes $1 million a month till today off that book, and he wrote that like 3 years ago. So the book taught me that you have to build a business system that makes money outside of you when you're not there. And so having read that book was my main reason for leaving my job, and then seeing the opportunity to help black professionals and women break into tech.
Amazing, amazing, Mo. Full answer. There's a lot of key lessons there in terms of moving with speed, building a business as a well-greased engine, and building mechanisms as well to not only make sure that we learn as fast as the market, but also that we have a bias to action, right? Because of time, I'll jump straight into the question, JP, which is, you've been building your venture, right, during the AI revolution, and as the founder of Taxuby, which has been acquired, you've had to keep up with rapid shifts in technology while still delivering value in the competitive market. So for those trying to make sense of artificial intelligence, what are the core components everyone needs to understand, and how has using AI helped you build faster, stay lean, and stay ahead?
Yeah, that's a good point. So I actually started the business while doing my master's degree here at UFT.
If you can please explain what the business does.
Yeah, so Taxuby, basically what it does is we built one of the first AI agents for accountants. So basically accountants can go and self-serve themselves. So you can ask the AI agents to tell you how much revenue you're going to make in the next 12 months, how much money you made in the last 12 years. And so basically it's like an agent that really helps you to understand your numbers. And so it empowers the clients, but also the accountants to do all the high value tasks. And so we started with one client, and I was building that after taking a class at UFT, and I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And I did one client, I had one client, and then that client referred me to another client, and it kind of just, picked it up. And I think one thing that happened is at a certain point, I had a lot of clients asking me the same questions. Like, okay, how is this going to work? How much am I going to make money of this? And so all the questions were repetitive. And what I could have done was maybe hire an assistant, or a junior person, or someone to actually answer those queries for me. But what I ended up doing is I built that AI agent to answer those questions. And so using automation, I would say, is the best way for you to stay lean as you build your startup, because I think we always see people glorifying how to I hire a new employee, great job, or I just had a new fundraising. I think we glorify a lot of these things, but I would say to businesses, if you're starting a new company, always stay lean and then try to avoid hiring. So now at Taxuby, once I sold it, we had 3 employees. And then now, as I joined Blockwise, we have about 5 employees. And so we always try to stay lean. Even though we have the income to do it, we always try to ask ourselves, do we need to hire? And can we do this by outsourcing to an agent or using automation? And so that's the first thing I would say is try to stay lean. And so right now, I would say don't think about the hype. I did AI agent that was in 2022. And we saw in 2025, so we're kind of at the peak yet. So if I was going to start over, I'll probably not do AI agents. And I'm in a very boring space. I'm in taxes, and so who here likes to do their taxes? Okay, one person. There we go. So try to do something that's not really glorifying. Something that's people don't really want to do, like compliance tax. It's boring, but you have to do it. So it's a great business model, and so try to do something that not many people do, but at the same time that you can find value and you can find clients. And so that was my space. I love that space, and the reason why I chose that space is actually because before the masters, I was actually an accountant by trade. And so I kind of shifted towards tech. So if you want to transition towards tech, let me know. I can tell you how to do that. And so, yeah, so really want to learn about something that you're good at, right? So if you're a plumber, you could do something for plumbers, solve their problem, right? Like my colleague said, try to really find the problem that you're good at and that you uniquely can solve, right? Like, if you don't know anything about health, like why you're going to start a health tech company? Like, that doesn't make sense. Find what you're good at, and I think that's where you're going to find the problem, solve the problem that you're going to solve. And I guess to answer the question about the core competencies, I go back to curiosity, right? So I was an accountant, and then I said, okay, coding is fun, coding is cool. I took one class, I liked it. I took a second class, which led me into a tech role, which led me to go back to school and do a master's. And so, always be curious. I would say that's the best skill to have in tech, is to be curious.
Amazing, amazing. Curiosity, automation, focusing on the right problems, and especially tackling key pain points that nobody wants to take care of, leveraging technology. That being said, ladies and gentlemen, our panel comes to an end due to time concerns, but we'll be diving more into artificial intelligence in the following workshop. So thank you so much, and tap in.